Hey, what's going on there, YouTube? This is SEL0320 representing JVS. This is not my spoiler review for Justice League, but this is my critical review and dissection of Justice League. There are things that I cannot talk about. I can't talk about, spoilers. I can't talk about things that are in the after credit sequences, which they are too. Definitely should talk about that a little bit later on in my spoiler review, because those are really big. And specifically the last one, it actually changes a little bit of perception that I had about the film coming out of it. And I will say that watching it a second time really did help me be able to put a lot of things in perspective. So this is going to be a little bit hard for me to critique some of it, but I'm going to do it. Okay, so Justice League, for me, the formulation of the Justice League, I can already say that there are a lot of moments throughout the film that I realized this is not the scene that I saw a year ago. This is not the scene how it played out in the trailers. There are certain scenes that I can say that they pulled a Thor Ragnarok, as it were, kind of surprising you with what you thought is one thing is really something else. And I don't know if that was intentional or if that was a different way how the actual scene was shot, but I can definitely say it was a little bit distracting. When I was actually watching the movie, and I've seen all the different trailers, I think if I went into the movie not knowing that there were reshoots or not knowing, anything about from any of the trailers, I think some of those moments with, Ezra Miller talking, doing his ranty jokes, or even like Jason Momoa doing his like epic like oh yeah, or whatever, I kind of would have been a more pleasantly surprised. I honestly feel like it would service you better if you haven't seen any trailers or try to see any clips, watch this move forward, but you probably already have. And it actually kind of detracts from some of those moments where I was like, I would have enjoyed this one the first time I seen it is in the movie, unfortunately. But more so than that, the reshoots. There were certain moments that I think that even with when Batman first interacts with Arthur Curry or Aquaman, I could literally tell like Ben Affleck's face looked different, and I could tell like after they met and talked, the dialogue had to have been different because it looked like they looked totally different and it progressed totally different. And so that's a noticeable change that I don't know. I don't know what they could have done, I guess, but that's more so when I wanted to talk about my, critiques in terms of nitpicks. This is a nitpick because it kind of takes you out of it for a second. It's kind of like there was a moment that a lot of people have been talking about CG. The CG moments for Steppenwolf, when he's close up and you get to really see him, when he's fighting against whoever, whether it be the Amazonians or if it's somebody else, you really get to see that detail and that fine detail. But, when he's kind of like a panned out shot and he's just fighting, that's one of the drawbacks, unfortunately, for any superhero movie, that it kind of can seem like just a CG-based character. I mean, same thing kind of happened with Wonder Woman, but that was a night shot, so it could actually give a little bit more grace. Steppenwolf, very much so. A lot of the shots were very well lit, so you can see, is CG. And so I guess that's one nitpick that I could definitely say. My favorite character, I would say, would be Victor Stone in Cyborg. I thought that his story was great, but I feel like they could have pushed the envelope a little bit more on the emotional side because I feel like they stopped to tailor it to something else. And I'm not sure if they didn't want to go and show certain things, but there was definitely a scene with Victor Stone where he was in his jacket and walking. That was one of the first trailers you see. So I think that they actually captured the scene of his accident or before or flashback sequences. That's definitely not something that you see in the progression of the movie. And unfortunately, that is a distraction because I'm in the back of my head, I was like, man, I missed that scene. Oh man, where's this Bruce scene? Oh man, what happened, And I think that his character was one that I feel like was merited a little bit more, but the way that they did it is they connected him with everybody perfectly. They actually allowed dialogue progression with him and Diana, him and Barry. Him and Barry was, it was life. I didn't even talk about that in my review. And even him and Aquaman, it was really good back and forth progression as far as dialogue, what they did with every single one of them, not even just Victor, because Diana and Bruce, it's not just chemistry that they have, it's kind of like history. You can kind of see where things are really going, and they definitely pushed that forward on Diana's side and on Bruce's side. And even Bruce, and the thing about this other thing is that they could easily cut Ben Affleck out the movie after this. After this movie, they could be done with it, because there's something that's actually said throughout the movie, and you kind of like, he's only a human. How long can he really continue to do this? That question is asked in the back of your head, which is a good, to me, good segue. Even though I personally don't want, Ben Affleck to go, I feel like they left all cards on the door and were like, look, this is everything. Everything that he is capable of, and everything you can see more of later. But if not, this was enough. You know what I'm saying? It's I actually appreciate that from a design standpoint and a director side standpoint, and of course Ben Affleck's devotion to the character as a whole. I would say that there are certain moments and comedic moments that feel very natural. They feel very natural. Like Ezra Miller's comedic timing is perfect because he's such a great dynamic actor. But then it could come off a little bit too much. Like you might get like, but it never goes and teeters over to going too far, to me personally. But there are moments that do not land necessarily as far as the jokes. I think there was one joke that that Victor has said one time. The first time I watched the movie, I was like, I didn't even understand what he said. And then the second time, I was like, oh, okay, I got that. But it was like, it was a little bit one too many. But then there's a lot of superhero movies that actually do that. It's not necessarily necessary to add this extra, dialogue. But for the service of this film, which is bringing these characters together and showing these personalities bleed out, is very entertaining, dynamic, and emotional. Like it's a natural emotional response that I actually feel when I'm seeing these characters engage, which is very good in the long term. My perception of how people are gonna critically look at it, like when I actually watched it the first time, I watched it with the fans, and the fans were kind of just like, yeah, this is good, and they were rallying in the midst. But then some people were kind of like making comparisons. When I went to the press screening, they were freaking out. Like they were cheering, clapping, like they legit had a great time. So from everybody that is the consumer standpoint, I think that you don't have to worry about people going back at you and saying, why did you like this? This isn't better than this. I think that you'll be able to safely know that this is an entertaining movie. The things that I can't talk about. How can I critique something I can't talk about? There is a moment in the movie that I know was amazing, that I can't talk about it, but I know that that wasn't how it was shot initially. And the reason why I know that is because of the way that a trailer happened, and there's something on Instagram that was shown to me, and it just was not the same at all. Even the post-credit sequence, and this is going back to the reshoots thing, which is, that might be a problem for me from being over-absorbing all the different things that I've seen. But I was like, I just couldn't get it out of my head like the second time I watched it, even though I enjoyed it the second time around. That this was reshot, and I'm curious, what was the movie like before? And is this intentionally something that was made so that I would have to buy the Blu-ray so I could see this alternative version or these other scenes that would make more sense to me? The good thing about this versus BVS, the reality is that BVS needed certain scenes to make the continuity and progression make sense. Justice League did not need that. Even in the 2 hours, it still serviced the characters perfectly. Even the soundtrack, even, each character had their moment and it wasn't shied away from. Even though they could have explored certain parts of their background, like Jim Gordon you know, Amber Heard's Mira, and some other people that I will not name, they definitely could have added more for that. But in what they were trying to do, which is build hope, community, teamwork, it services for the progression of the plot. So that allows, you know, the pacing to not go back and forth. It's like, a lot of times I was like looking at BVS, like even when we were doing like our commentary, and I could tell like why people were going and critiquing this. But for me, in my head, like I am internally and mentally a comic book person, but then I also do critique. And with this, the editing for the beginning is perfect. The editing between the certain scenes that were, I could tell, definitely were reshoots, they did it well. You know what I'm saying? And so it progressed the story quicker, but it can feel rushed if you can assess and know the comic book lore as well as seeing how much of the reshoots and stuff are done. It's almost impossible not to sometimes feel like something is missing or something, this definitely was drawn out a different kind of way. But the good thing is that it doesn't matter because they actually did it and serviced it well. And the reason why I bring this up and not in my review, because I want to give you guys my real authentic perspective on the movie as a whole, not leaving anything back. Because if I sit there and didn't tell you that, you know, and you sit there like, oh, he didn't bring this up, you know, he's a fanboy. No, that's not the reality. I want the movie to not only be good, but I would love for it to be great. I would love for it to be epic. I would love for it to be thought-provoking. And if there are thought-provoking moments, like the moment where Victor's having this conversation with his dad, and I'm like, wow. Or like the moment when Diana and Bruce are having this conversation out of mask, and it's like, wow, I can't believe that happened. You know, those moments are rich and weighty, and those moments also cater to the action moments, the moments where you're like, that's my hero. Whenever you say something like that, that is something that is cemented for somebody, not just a kid, but somebody that is a lover of the character. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I can just leave it all on the door and confirm with you guys it definitely is merit to the 8.5 out of 10. Where it stands for me, on the ladder right now, and I didn't even talk about this in my review, so you guys are getting like some extra meat, as it were. On the ladder between Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad. Of course, you know it's above Suicide Squad, but I haven't thought about it actually, but right now, as it stands, I'm putting Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and Justice League at a tie, Batman vs Superman 3, Suicide Squad 4. If I had to pick between Wonder Woman and Justice League, which I would watch again and again and again, honestly, I would actually go and rewatch this over and over again. And I actually feel like when I buy the Blu-ray and get to see the other scenes, or whatever the maybe Zack Snyder cut, which I don't want to sit there and go into that conjecture back and forth with that, because what I actually did get was serviceable, which was something that I actually really appreciated and I really did like. Did I love it? At this point, I might say yeah. But I definitely say it's good and I enjoyed it. But I think it's growing on me. The second time I watched it, I almost came close to putting it at a 9. But I'm just going to stay at that 8.5 out of 10. Hopefully you enjoyed my critical dissection of Justice League. I have nothing forward until I run my spoiler review, which I've been recording certain clips in between that. And I think I'm going to do one more clip right now, just so everybody kind of knows that I didn't pick this out of nowhere. I'm right now working on my critical dissection of Justice League. Stay tuned because that spoiler review is coming. Music is playing. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Talk to y'all a little bit later on. Peace, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed this critic review. Peace.